I'm on this phone call with this woman. She's got a beautiful business, like is truly exemplary, like someone who I trust and who I sought after to be a mentor for me. And she says, you've got to write this chapter in this book. And I hang up the phone. I go from, it was every emotion in the book, from so excited, I cannot believe this is happening, to in a matter of 5 hours later, I'm literally on the phone with my sister, bawling my eyes out because I just don't think I'm ready. I just don't think I'm ready. She was like, okay, wait a second. So you're telling me that the things you've been praying for, you've been praying to God to give you some type of catapult for your business, some type of sign or direction about where you're supposed to go and when and how. And you're telling me that God has wrapped this beautiful present and he's dropped it at your feet. It's got a bow on it and everything. And you're telling him it's too pretty for me.
Welcome to the Audacious Founder Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Manning. This show is for the person who knows they're built for more. Welcome to your next level. Welcome to the Audacious Founder Podcast, Being Bold in Business. I'm Melissa Manning, your host, an audacious founder, and your financial expert. Today, I am here with my friend, Brittney Tollinchi. She is the host of the Unjuggle the Struggle podcast. Her mission is to create authentic spaces for us to navigate life's challenges and transform our lives through impactful perspective shifts, aligned habits, and a reconnection to our individual passions and greater purpose. I am so excited to bring her on today and to introduce you to her because I want to understand how she passionately pivoted from her corporate job into purposeful, driven entrepreneurship. I want to hear all about this. And I also, before I forget, I want to know what it means to obediently surrender. So don't let me forget that. Brittney, welcome.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to the conversation too. So I've got questions for you too. All right.
Fine. Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Because
yes.
I like the conversation. So absolutely. We have been talking a lot actually lately, Brittney and I. We did an Instagram live yesterday, which we were both a little nervous about because we haven't done those before. And it was so fun.
So fun. We had a blast. We got to the top of we had challenged ourselves. We said, you know what? We're going to at least do 15 minutes. If we can, we'll go to 30.
I forgot about that.
Yes.
I was thinking in my head 30 minutes. So I totally forgot about that. Good for us.
It worked. I'm so proud of us.
Me too.
We got to our 30-minute mark and I think we could have kept going. It was so good.
We could have. And it's interesting because sometimes you have these things on your maybe wish list as an entrepreneur, or you have these things on your to-do list and you procrastinate because you feel like they are intimidating or scary. And then you do them and they're so much more pleasant than you thought they'd be. And that's kind of a little bit mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing. And it's also too, it's one of those things that I've learned early on in my entrepreneurship, or my entrepreneur journey, that for as much as entrepreneurship feels like the wild, wild west, where you're just slinging whatever you can anywhere and you're doing your best and you just keep showing up for the gunfight, but really you're trying to get, pew, 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 pew. But that's also kind of been that has been really exhilarating too. You never know what's around the corner. You never know who you're going to meet, what kind of conversations you're going to have, what opportunities are just literally going to be placed at your feet. And I've loved it. I've loved every single second of it.
Oh, and hearing you say all of that, and you know what? This happens a lot of times when we're having conversations. I get this full body kind of goosebump feeling. And it's really true. And I don't want to go too far in this direction because I want to come back to your story. And again, obedient surrendering, but these little tiny mountains that we overcome. Right? I think a lot of people view entrepreneurship and building a business as this one giant mountain, but really it's all these little peaks. And us doing our Instagram live yesterday was just one of those little tiny peaks that we climbed.
Oh, see, now you just returned the chills. You just did it. Yep. You're so right. I think about even myself a year ago, if I would have thought about entrepreneurship, I would have imagined it was just this uphill mountain, but now actually being in it and even reflecting this morning in some of my journaling time, it's man, heck yes, we did that. We overcame that mountain and it felt so good.
We could have easily said no.
Yeah. we could have.
Okay, I'm making a note of something you said to come back to.
Yeah, you're good.
So, what is your story? And actually, before you get going, I'm going to interrupt you again and I'm going to just give a little background. So, I've talked about this event a lot already, the Powerhouse Women event in Arizona. That's where I met Brittney, along with a lot of other wonderful women. And honestly, I didn't expect this either. Like, I had such a fun time getting to know you at the event. We had a couple dinners, couple whatever, hanging out a couple times at the event. But like now we've done your podcast, we're doing this Instagram live thing, we have our group chat with the other women, we're doing this podcast today. Like it's just so cool. But guys, I met Brittney in the pool in Arizona, and she started talking about how she has worked in corporate for a long time. And then one day she was just like, oh, I can't take it anymore. And she decided to make a change. So please start from the beginning.
I mean, it did go something like that, kind of. Like something kind of, yes. Okay, so a year ago, I was living a different dream. I spent 15 plus years in corporate environments. I loved it. I was thriving. I was an award-winning leader. My teams won awards on a global scale, all of it. And I can honestly tell you, I was at the top of my game. I had just won 2 or 3 years back-to-back top performer awards. I loved everything about what I was doing. I was made for business. I was made for the corporate arena. And what had happened was, well, you see what had happened was, it was actually about 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years prior. I had gone to a conference in Denver in Kansas City from Denver. And it was the first time I needed to take I took an 8-hour drive by myself. It was the first time in 8 hours, like I had, since becoming a new wife, since becoming a new mother, it was the first time I really had 8 hours by myself, and I bawled the entire way. And I think why it was like just this emotional maybe release of autopilot living. I recognized, okay, I had the house, I had the job, I had the husband, I had the kids, I had all of these things, but like, what now? Because now it really is just about getting up every single day, going to work, and then eat, sleep, repeat. And I just kept asking myself, there's got to be more to this whole thing than just this constant like hamster wheel cycle.
Question.
Answer.
Before you got in that car, were you feeling depressed? Were you feeling like your brain was going to explode? Or were you like, you were going to explode because you were holding in all these emotions? Were you feeling like, I just need to get out of here? Like, no, what was the feeling leading up to that? Because you had to have had some signs.
None of it. I'm telling you, none of it. And I think that is, when you're so tired, you don't even realize you're tired. That's what I was. It was so like, and for me, it was becoming so numb to living this autopilot life where I was happy. I was very, very happy. I was happy in my relationship. I was happy with where the trajectory of my career. But in those moments, I became really aware that, again, it was like, okay, I'm checking off all of these boxes, but for what? For who? Why am I doing this? And I started like just asking myself these questions, because obviously there was something, to your point, like there was some emotional release. There was something that was happening and I had no idea. I had no idea. So on that drive, as I started asking myself these questions, I started hearing like this message coming through, a universal download, God, like saying, hey, you're supposed to use your gifts that you have. You're supposed to be a blessing to others. You're supposed to get out of the box. And so I, as the high achiever, stereotypical, stubborn, hard pass, no thanks, I'm going to do it my way, personality.
Guilty.
You too? I got this, control freak. I actually fought it. I fought the calling for about 1.5 years, 2 years, because I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm just bored in my career, or maybe I'm not like feeding this portion of me that needs to connect deeply with my family. And so the more I started playing with it was things like, instead of logging on at 6:30 in the morning for work, I didn't need to log on that early, but instead of logging on at 6:30 in the morning, I would log in at 6:45, and I would commit to just spending 15 minutes by myself. 15 minutes, whether it was reading, whether it was journaling, whether it was praying, whatever it was. And I learned a couple things. First off, 15 minutes, the world didn't burn down. so I could keep doing that. And then 15 minutes turned into 30 minutes. And then I started creating better boundaries at work, which then actually helped my teams create better boundaries for
Whoa.
themselves too. Better boundaries. I started speaking up more and saying, again, I thought that I could fix whatever this movement, this whisper, this roar in my heart. I thought I could fix it by showing up more, like better boundaries, being louder in the boardrooms, fighting for things that I knew our teams needed. And what it got me was the 2-time, 3-time performer of the year. And I realized every single time that I was recognized that I wanted it less, and that it didn't feel as connected as I knew it could, would, should anymore. And so again, I loved my job. I just knew I was supposed to close that chapter so that I could make myself available for whatever was next. I really believe unwavering faith, and that's part of the obedient surrender. When you feel a certain calling or a pull on your life, like there's a reason for it. And sometimes it sounds absolutely crazy. You better bet your bottom dollar that everybody person that was like, wait a second, Tollinchi's leaving? Tollinchi's leaving? And it was like, what's wrong? Where is she going? Who is she? Like, what happened? And it was nothing's wrong. It just was meant to close a chapter so I can open myself up for what was next. And hands down, everything that has been meant for me is finding me exactly like it's supposed to. Ooh, I just did the chill thing again to you.
I had like a million questions while you were talking, and I don't remember what they were.
You just let me ramble.
No, it's so good. It's so good. I made so many notes. I like how you were saying I was made for the corporate arena, right? Like that is such an, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that. And I'm curious, like, what does that even mean? Like, what about you? Or like, because you also mentioned your gifts, and I wrote down what were the gifts you weren't able to use in corporate that now you feel like you're able to use. But also, I'm sure there's a ton of overlapping gifts that you're able to use. And so, like, because also made for the corporate arena, that is a story, because I could say I'm made for entrepreneurship, right? It's a story that we tell ourselves, which I wonder if a lot of people tell themselves that so that they don't have to leave.
Absolutely. Could have been. It was, yeah. I mean, especially when, as I was fighting it and doing a lot of the deep inner work around, like trying to have a pre-identity crisis before, like, okay, wait a second. If I'm not.
Wait, that's so good by itself. You're having a pre-identity crisis.
1,000 again, because control freak, right? Like, so I'm going to anticipate as much of this as I possibly can.
Oh my God. So funny.
If I'm not this corporate businesswoman, like, then who am I? If I'm not a paycheck, if I'm not contributing a paycheck in my household, then what am I? Who am I? And having to work through the identity surrounding that and the worth and my value. And so, yeah, I spent some time asking myself those questions and putting myself through really, truly, it was a transformation.
How long do you think the pre-identity crisis, how long was that process?
I mean, I would say since the second that I felt like, oh crap, I think I'm supposed to not be in the corporate box anymore.
And how long was that feeling? Was that like a year?
It was like a year and a half. It was like a year and a half, 2 years from the drive I took. I want to say it was like August of 2022, I think. And then by March of 2024 is when I quit, which was crazy, especially too, because in the high achievers, and this was one of the things. So I'm a co-author in a book that's actually going to be published in November. And part of that, when I say things that were absolutely meant for me have found me, that came from a conversation. I never sought out writing a book or being a part of like that type of a mission. And I had one conversation, and by the end of it, the woman, I'm so grateful for her. She's like, you've got to tell your story, and it's got to be written, and I've got a platform. And so in that book, it's called The Joyful Entrepreneur Volume 3. Like I said, released. I think we actually just got a release date. It's going to be the 5th of November. Whoop, whoop. So Joyful Entrepreneur Volume 3, and we all bust myths about being entrepreneurs. And one of the myths I busted my myth is that quitting is failure, because quitting was actually one of the hardest things I ever had to do. Like quitting an identity that wasn't serving me anymore, quitting a worldly pursuit of a title that meant what of a salary of an identity. And so quitting for me, it wasn't failure. Quitting has been freedom.
So when you were in your pre-identity crisis, was that a conversation you were having in your head like the whole time, that quitting was failure? And then what caused you to then switch that belief quitting would be freedom?
You have got fantastic questions. So I
Oh,
want to
well,
go, I want to
thank
go
you.
back to the, too, because like what gifts were you not using? And like, that's a
Oh,
great question. No one has ever asked me that. But so with this one, this kind of actually reminds me of something you brought up the other day too. It was the whole concept of like giving up versus
mhm.
quitting. And
Yeah.
so, for me, yes, it was like, wait a second, if I give up on this dream that I've held and that I've been intentional about and that I've matured in over the last 15 plus years, that also sounds equally crazy. Like, what is happening here? And so working through, is it giving up? What, like, why does, and then again, I just got really, really curious. And it was things like, why does quitting have to mean something negative? Why does quitting mean failure? Why? Wait a second. Why aren't we allowed to quit in the middle of the season or quit if we're like, sure, everybody, when we're talking about addictions, everybody's like, oh, just quit. And it's difficult. And if you can quit your addiction, you're applauded. So you're like, well, wait a second. How many of us are addicted to work?
Whoa.
I don't like how many of us are addicted to a certain identity. I know for me, I
Well,
was
yes.
absolutely addicted to this identity that I
Mhm.
had longed for, that I stepped so wonderfully into. And yeah, and I had to quit that. So why the heck wouldn't I applaud myself for that? And I absolutely did with time. It was not an easy pill to swallow. But you have
This
your own story of like giving, like what's the difference of, giving up versus quitting. Like I know you've had those internal dialogues too.
This is so interesting that we're talking about this, though, because yesterday I did a podcast interview and we were talking about addiction but like addiction to alcohol
Mm.
and how that is similar to like self-sabotage. Like, what are the differences and what are the similarities between being addicted to alcohol or a substance versus self-sabotaging or being addicted to going to the gym, these other kinds of ways that we numb ourselves and or self-sabotage ourselves. So it's kind of interesting that that's coming up here.
It's deadly perseverance. That's what it is. Like we're persevering after whatever that may be. Like, and so much so that we almost get our blinders on that we can't see anything else. So we keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going.
Not to mention the positive chemical reactions that we get in our mind that make us feel good when we're doing X, Y, or Z.
Mm-hmm.
But you're addicted to that identity because there are certain things about it that feed your ego in a way that makes you feel valuable,
Important, worthy.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. All of it.
Yeah.
All of it. And I couldn't, the second that I had that moment of like, whoa, what am I doing all of this for? Who is this all for? Where, who? Wait a second. Since when did all of this become the way that I was going to like identify success in my life? And the second that I got curious about all of those things, I couldn't stop. And here I am.
Well, and I was also thinking that the pre-identity, because I love that. I think that's so funny and like accurate, the pre-identity crisis and then the actual identity crisis. And I think having a pre-identity crisis, you called it controlling, but I think it's healthy because it's preparation for making a change. Like your pre-identity crisis is when you got curious, that whole like that's what that period of time is for you to investigate and eliminate other alternatives as solutions for whatever this sort of emptiness or finding this missing piece. You're looking at all these other scenarios to see, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? And when all of those show up, you're experimenting, right? When all of those experiments fail, they don't come up or solve the problem, then you're like, well, the only option is the one that I was really trying to avoid
at all
because of all the
costs.
fears.
Yeah.
And then you make that decision and now you're in the identity crisis.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then you're actually living it. And then you're just
Yeah.
hoping and you're trying to everything that you prepped for. For me, it was like, okay, if I'm not, and I felt so fortunate to have such support for this. I've got an incredible spouse who was like the second it was like, hey, I have to mess up some things in our life. And he was like, oh boy, tell me more. But he was like, I'm in, like, whatever that means, I'm in.
Aw.
And to have that kind of support has been, I mean, so wonderful. And he truly, my husband, he reflects a lot of things back. And I was so grateful because it was about 30 days after I had left. And I was sitting there and I was like, I knew I was feeling this heightened sense of peace and freedom. And even though there were so many things I did not have figured out, it was probably one of the very first times in my life, except for becoming a new mom, I would say, where it was just like, I really truly felt like I had zero idea what I was doing and the value that I was bringing. And he was so gracious to reflect back. And he's like, wait a second, well, the value you bring inside the home actually hasn't changed. And I'm like, I literally don't have a paycheck. Like, what are you talking about? And he's like, you're still a patient mother. You're still totally there for your kids. You're still a wonderful wife. He's like, you're still nothing, zero has changed about the person who you are within these walls. It's just changed on the outside. So what kind of value are you, like, what does bringing value to other people look like on the outside now? And just like how transformative and wonderful that was and how much I needed to hear that, even though I thought I am more than my paycheck. I am more than my paycheck. I thought I had done all those things, but it wasn't until.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the gifts question because I don't think you answered it, but I have another question now, which is, where do you think that belief came from that like your paycheck or the amount of money that you're able to contribute has such a large value or that's a big part of who you are, what makes you important? Rephrase that if you feel like it.
Yeah, no, I think if I'm hearing you right, kind of the question is like, where do you think that maybe that stronghold on like our identity becomes so rooted in like how much we make or what our titles are?
Oh, that was so very well said.
No, hey, you started it. Well, it was so crazy. I was actually just talking to one of my younger siblings who's in college right now and, holds a position in office within the school.
Cool.
And he was saying, we were just doing our normal, how are things going, buddy? And he's like, good. It's so awesome now that I have this certain title. And I was like, what do you mean?
Okay.
And he goes, well, last year when I was just a fill in the blank. Yeah. So you're like already you're catching those context clues about how we feel about ourselves associated with our title. He's like, well, last year when I was just this, people wouldn't really respond to me the same. And I really didn't get this kind of attention or response rate or whatever it would be. But now that I'm this title, everybody responds. I get what I need. And I thought that was such a perfect example of how so many of us get it's not even programmed because I think that there's a choice there. But again, it's what I think we're willing to become aware of. But I think that's a perfect example right there, that when all of a sudden you are starting to get things that you want because you have this title, that's very appeasing and you get addicted to that. And then you want bigger titles. And then you can it's a cycle. It's just the cycle.
But really what you're wanting is acknowledgement, respect,
validation, that you're worthy of a response, that what you have to say is important, that you matter. Like that's what we're all looking for at our deepest levels, right?
I'm going to cry. Don't cry.
Oh my God, don't cry. I'm going to cry.
No, I'm not going to cry. But like, again, I felt that resonates with me because even maybe like a year ago, I was thinking to go back to school to get a master's simply because I wanted to be able to say, and I wanted that title because I felt like that was something that would help me in my own business. And it's so fascinating how really that is meaningless because it's just about how you show up. I know. Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah. Maybe it does help a little bit, but I don't think that's something that prevents you from being successful, right?
Yeah,
it's really how you show up and what you do with what you've already got.
Exactly. That was a perfect example. 100%.
Okay. Gifts. Hey guys, here's what most people do when they want to build wealth. They download another freebie, they try to piece together random advice from TikTok and YouTube and end up stuck, overwhelmed, inconsistent, and spinning their wheels. But that is not how you create true freedom. If you're ready for something smarter, deeper, and actually aligned with your life, book an Audacious Wealth breakthrough call with me. This is not cookie cutter coaching. This is where we look at your gifts, your vision, and your numbers. And we build a bold, personalized blueprint to help you turn your income into impact, your time into freedom, and your ideas into legacy. You've done the DIY hustle. Now it's time for strategy that fits like it was made for you, because it was. Spots are limited, so head to the show notes and claim yours now. So,
Okay, gifts.
did anything come to mind like that you weren't able to utilize in your corporate role?
I thought it was such a great question. Never been asked that before. And the first thing that came to mind wasn't like necessarily that those gifts weren't being utilized in corporate. I actually think it was because they were being utilized in corporate that I had the success that I did, and that I was able to impact, that my teams were able to move the mountains that we moved.
Yeah.
It was because I was willing to bring those gifts forth. I think that in certain environments, though, they get capped out. And it is because there's a structural hierarchy. There is only so much that you can do and certain decisions that you can make. And even though I felt had the support of my leadership, I had fantastic leadership. If I needed something, I could always at least put in the bid.
Right.
So that wasn't the problem. It's just when you're operating a $5.6 billion international organization, your hands and the amount of red tape, it's nobody's fault. It's actually how you run a good organization. And so I got really great at cutting the red tape and figuring out how to make things work for the business and our clients. And it was a beautiful combination. I just knew the gifts were supposed to be making an impact outside of the box. They were supposed to be cutting. This is first time this has ever been said. I was supposed to be like cutting red tape in different arenas. I was supposed to be breaking down barriers for people in not ways that necessarily impacted their bottom line, but in ways that impacted the quality of their life. That I was to be the person I was supposed to, I wanted my gifts to be able to be the bridge between what we all really believe is possible, what's the black and white in front of us, and then the piece of us that we maybe don't give as much attention to because we're so busy running on this hamster wheel. But those innate gifts that we have, those innate passions that we have, even if we tap into them just a little bit, just a tiny little bit, the amount of joy that we have the power to spark in our own lives. And I just feel like that's what I was supposed to be doing. Where joy is the currency, not
joy is the currency.
Again, never said that one either.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, where joy is the currency, not next year's budget.
Not next year. I like that. If you are able to do that, right? Like if you are able to bridge that gap and cut the red tape for people and have positive impact on their lives and allow them to access their gifts, and correct me if anything I'm saying is not what you meant.
Yeah.
What's the bigger impact of that? Like, why is that good? What's going to happen?
Oh, you just gave me chills, because it's the whole idea of the ripple effect. Like literally just if we have an ounce, even an ounce of more joy in our life, the way that we interact with other people in our lives, the way that we interact with ourselves, the things that we all of a sudden believe that we can do and become capable of, just because we had one ounce of joy. So I constantly am envisioning this ripple effect that takes place far and deep and wide, and it just keeps going. And it starts with just one decision to say, I also want to wake up a little bit here. I don't want to become numb on this hamster wheel. I don't want to chase worldly identities. And I want to know who I am for me and for those around me. What am I really worthy of? And who is giving me that worth? Did that answer the question?
I think so, but can I ask, and maybe it's going to be the same question, but I want to see if it's going to lead somewhere else. You said the ripple effect goes far and wide, right? And when you say that, I'm imagining across the world, like different countries, right? People feeling more joyous. And so when we think about that, like what changes if there's more people feeling joy and being more connected to themselves and just being happier across the board.
Everything, like everything changes. Like the quality, the way that we live our lives, like how, okay, so maybe this is kind of where you're going. Things like, so maybe it doesn't feel so foreign and vast. I would say things like immediate impact would be like our ability to be present and experience the world around us for what it is, and like to be deeply connected in relationships. Instead of going 100 miles an hour, we actually get to connect with people. We get to connect back to ourselves. We get to be present, that we're not already thinking 14 days ahead. We're thinking in the here and the now. We're prepared for 14 days ahead, but we're able to just enjoy the simpler things in life. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't require as much. Maybe, what you were saying about your prior podcast that you just recorded, maybe then it doesn't require as much, because you start to find joy in simple things like being able to take a walk outside. You start to find joy in simple things like getting a text that says, I love you. And you feel those things so much deeper at a different level. And I would say maybe that's more the direct impact.
What comes to my mind, like on a super, super grand scale, is like, if people are more fulfilled in their relationships, in the work that they're doing, if they are just overall more joyous and present and appreciating the little things and not caring so much about cars. I mean, I want a fancy car, so let's be honest.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Nothing
But
wrong
not
with that.
putting so much value on those material things. I think it would lead to more people helping more people, right? And so a lot of these like big issues that we see in the world could be positively impacted if more people are volunteering, more people are creating nonprofit organizations to help other groups of people. People are less judgmental of each other and less trying to hold certain groups of people down, right? Like if everybody is rising, what new possibilities will there be? If everybody is, all the people that are into science, if they're all doing experiments and learning new things about how to solve problems, like what's possible? Are we going to be living on Mars?
All of a sudden, we become so much more empowered.
Yeah.
So I would say that's part of the result. I think joy, I think being empowered, I think to everything you just said, more compassion and our ability to help one another, again, on a grand level. But that it could literally just be even within the walls of your own home, being more joyful, being more empowered, being more compassionate. Like think about how that alone would change the inside walls of your own home. So that's why.
I got so many chills during that because
so good.
Yeah. And I have a lot of similar, like, that's exactly what I want to see too. I want more people to be overestimating themselves. Like I want people to be more confident. I want people to believe in themselves more. I want them to say, oh, I think I have a gift doing this weird little thing here. What if I really invested in that gift and see what happens? Right. As opposed to being like, no, that's something silly. Nobody's ever going to like that or want to pay for that or whatever. So
I got a question for you. So what's one thing that you've quit in order to ensure that you are in a position to help other people do that? Like if that's your why, what do you think is one thing along your journey that you've quit? Maybe it's like relationships, maybe it's like businesses, maybe it's.
So yes, and I don't want to just say the same answer every time, and you just reminded me of this. So yes, like I have quit businesses because of it. I've quit ideas because of it.
Good one. That one can hurt because they came from somewhere, and how do you like sifting through? Is this something I'm supposed to pursue or not? Quitting ideas can,
Well, a relationship could be an idea as well. Right. But as you were saying that, I was just thinking, I feel like the ideas are still attached to me. Like, I feel like I have a string and the ideas are just like trailing behind me. And like, I can't really get rid of them.
So are you supposed to quit the idea? Or are you supposed to quit ignoring the idea?
Oh God. That's a good question. Well, I think you know this. I've started a lot of businesses and shiny object syndrome is definitely something I'm guilty of. And so that question for me is dangerous because because if I had it my way, if I had all the resources available and all the time imaginable and the biggest team, I would start every single business. I would execute on every single idea because I see the value and the potential of every idea. But again, that's a blessing and a curse. So good ideas. There was I in New York before COVID, a couple years, maybe 2018, I wanted to start a sports facility in Brooklyn, like a really large sports facility that would have been, it would have been only one floor, but then with a soccer field on the roof
Sweet.
and a bar on the roof and like really amazing, and volleyball courts and like basketball courts on the inside. And I got so close. I found an investor who he said, if you can find a college to or university to like invest and be a partner and like this would be their sports facility for the school, then we will invest. I found a university or a college, I can't remember if it was which one, to invest. I got the sports, like the athletic director. He was like ready to go. We had a meeting together and then the investor backed out.
Ah,
So that was like, I think a year's worth of work that I had spent like really trying to build that vision and make that happen. And I felt like I got so close. And then that guy backed out. And I felt like betrayed a little bit. Like I felt like the rug had been pulled out from under me because I had done everything that I was supposed to do, right? Like I met my side of the bargain. And then I think they just like never really thought that I could do it maybe, or that I would follow through. And so then when I did, they were like, "Oh no, actually we don't want to do this." And so I could have kept pursuing it, but I just felt like at that point, I felt like that was the end, because now also the school, the athletic department or director, they thought that I was full of crap at that point, because
yeah,
so I
you
lost
hadn't.
them. And so I would have had to start from scratch, and I could have, but again, I guess in that moment, I just felt like there were other things that were more worth my time.
I mean, yeah, we have to be able to prioritize.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it just looks different now. Like, maybe it doesn't look like that exact facility with all of those exact features, but maybe in the future it does look like an even better version of that.
And
Yeah.
I believe in signs, and kind of like what you said, you left and then you just started seeing things line up. I think you said that,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And that's what I feel too. It's like once you put the intention out there and you do it in a way where there's no other option, like this is happening. I'm creating this sports facility no matter what. I got the investor, I got the school to sign up, right? Like these things were lining up, and then boom, it all fell apart. Like somebody opened a hatch in the floor and it just fell through. And I almost felt like, okay, that's
Maybe wasn't supposed to.
right, this is not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I moved on, and I don't know, I don't know yet how you can tell the difference between just a hurdle and a sign to
Yeah.
pivot.
I've experiencing that often. And that's a part of the obedience surrender. In my case, it is about like trusting. And I adopted this mindset a very, very long time ago that everything, every single thing, every breath I breathe, it is for me. So whatever is happening, it's not like, oh, why me, or this is happening to me. It's that everything happens for me, for
Mm.
my good, for my growth, for my development, for my like, so these challenges or these hurdles that come up, they are divinely orchestrated for me. And I
Mm.
just so believe that with everything. I think that me quitting my job is a testament of that. Saying yes to writing the chapter in the book, again, opportunities kind of presenting themselves. And it's like, okay, I sat there and I actually just did a podcast about this in a matter of, so I get this, I'm on this phone call with this woman. She's got a beautiful business, like is truly exemplary, like someone who I trust and who I sought after to be a mentor for me. And we're having this conversation. She says, you've got to write this chapter in this book. And I hang up the phone. I go from, it was every emotion in the book, from so excited, I cannot believe this is happening, to in a matter of 5 hours later, I'm literally on the phone with my sister, bawling my eyes out because I just don't think I'm ready. I just don't think I'm ready. I just don't think that could I really be a published author? I just left my job. I really don't even know like which way is up, which way is down. I don't even actually have a business like this. I just don't think I'm ready. I just don't think I'm ready. And in a matter of 5 hours, I almost talked myself out of the opportunity. And I know. So like, it's crazy how we will self-sabotage ourselves.
But what happened? Did your sister talk you back into it, or like what?
Ooh, should I make you go listen to my podcast?
Oh, I've listened to some of them, but I
No,
didn't
no,
get
no.
that one.
No, what happened is my sister, and I don't even know if she knows how like pivotal this moment was for me, but she was like, okay, wait a second. So you're telling me that the things you've been praying for, you've been praying to God to give you some type of catapult for your business, some type of sign or direction about where you're supposed to go and when and how. And you're telling me that God has wrapped this beautiful present and he's dropped it at your feet. It's got a bow on it and everything. And you're telling him it's too pretty for me. Like, are you really willing to tell him sorry, that's too pretty for me. Go give it to somebody else. And I was like,
I love your sister, by the way.
I know. Dang it. I love her too. Dang it.
She's
And it was like, man, okay, this is part of absolutely walking out my faith that he's placed this for me. The answer is yes. I may not be a published author today, but the only way I'm going to get there is if I say yes, like try. I've got to at least show up. And so then I really just started adopting this mentality of showing up. And even those hurdles, those ones that maybe feel like, oh man, I just don't know. I go back to the stuff I was doing during the pre-identity crisis. I go back to the journaling. I go back to the praying. I go back to the reading. I go back to trusting and leaning into my support system and talking it out. And then just really sitting with, at the end of the day, I have the utmost faith. And if this is meant to be, like, let me continue to explore this. Because again, I'm not just like I know my story kind of sounds a little like I'm a willy-nilly, oh, I just quit. But that's not exactly like, I like to take educated risks. And so, doing our due diligence, but sometimes just being okay with that I'm not going to have everything figured out and learning how much of a blessing that has actually been in this season. It is so blissful to not actually have everything figured out. There's so much peace and freedom and just like showing up for my day. As much as, yes, I still schedule out my day. I have meetings, I have goals. I want to build $1 million business as fast as I possibly can. So there's things I have to do. I don't just like roll out of bed. And I was telling you earlier, I was up at 4:30 this morning and spent 2 hours organizing through some of the stuff I know that I've got to take care of in my business, but also like just being here for all of it.
That's something I feel like I need to noodle on a little bit. Like what you said, so blissful not having everything figured out. And I think because that's something I always say in entrepreneurship, you're never going to know everything. And I don't know, maybe we even said this yesterday in our Instagram live, like you're never going to have you're never going to be fully equipped, right? You're never, whether it's a relationship, whether it's having kids, whether it's starting a business, whether it's going into a new job, you're never going to have every single one of those answers. And there's always going to be some kind of thing that gets thrown at you that you weren't expecting that you now have to problem solve. But thinking about it in a way that is like, this is blissful. I don't think I've ever.
It's much more fun. I will tell you, it also kind of makes me break out in hives if I'm not intentional about it. Okay. I'm like, what do you mean? I don't know how we're going to do X, Y, and Z, but it's like just getting to a place where, again, recognizing that the journey of how I'm going to problem solve this is meant for me to enjoy. Like, I'm not supposed to stress through it, even though I'm going to. I'm not supposed to, like, it's meant for me to enjoy.
Yeah. And maybe that's a conscious choice. All of this is easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
But like when a problem comes up, really taking a moment to be like, am I going to stress about this? Like for me, I was telling Brittney before we got on here that my AC is broken. It's 82 degrees in here. I don't know how I'm not dripping sweat. I expect it to be, but
it's all those chills I keep giving you.
Yeah, it's keeping me cool. But I feel like me a year ago or 2 years ago, I would have been really angry about this. And it probably would have ruined my day. It would have ruined my evening. It happened last night. It would have ruined my evening. But last night and today, I've just been like, it is what it is, right? I'm not upset about and maybe there is like getting to a point where you can actively make that choice. Am I gonna stress about this or not? But this is something I want to think about. This is also reminding me the game of life and how to play it.
Someone else just recommended that to me.
Oh, that's 2 signs. That's 2 signs. For me, it's 3. If you see it or hear about it somewhere else, or you get reminded of it somewhere else, you got to read it. But even still, I think you should read it. But she has a lot of quotes, ton of quotes in there. And I think it's a very good book. But one of the things she said that I seriously rolled my eyes over was, when you are paying bills, do so with blissfulness, right? And so I was like, oh, like, shut the F up, Florence. But then I started thinking about it and I was like, yes, because it's the gratitude, right? So maybe it's the same thing here. When you have problems, unexpected problems that come up, it's like you can switch your thinking and say, my AC unit is broken, right? But I have an AC unit and I'm not going to have to pay for it to get fixed. So I can sit here and be blissful and like grateful that I'm even lucky enough to have this problem.
Exactly. And yeah, and I think everything within moderation, right? Like you could, because there's going to be folks that hear that and they're going to be like, oh, the worst situation in the world, I'm supposed to be blissful about that. It's like, no, that's not, it's exactly what I help people do. It's those small shifts in perspective, and then aligning to just daily habits to those, and how much that allows you to reconnect back to just your normal, natural, God-given joy that's already inside you. And that's like that automatic, like you have the key to be more blissful. You have the key to be more powerful. You have the key to be more connected. All of those things that are already inside us.
Yep. More chills. Okay. So what is something, because I want you to talk about how you are helping people, how you are like helping them create those shifts. So like, what is something in your business that you are really excited about right now?
Oh my gosh. I'm just so excited. So I'm loving my podcast. I'm loving having an opportunity to just show up in this different space. And then when I hear feedback about like, oh, that episode was exactly what I needed, you're like, that was so cool. And so then I turned that podcast into a 12-week transformative coaching program. So now I've got this coaching program. It's all about quitting. It's Unjuggle the Burnout Struggle, because that's what we are. I know most of us are going to hear the word burnout and we go, oh, she's talking about work, quitting my job. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, think about how many like balls you're juggling up in the air at all points in times. What I think they say something like, Americans in a recent study said 60% of the time they get to the end of the day and they did not get to all of their chores and their errands.
No, of course not.
Yeah, which means that we're in a constant state. So not only do we not have enough time to,
we're always playing catch up.
We are always, it's a constant state of burnout and hustle and grind and hamster wheel. And it's in our work. It's in our relationships. It's as parents, it's as caregivers, it's as spouses, it's socially. So we are just, as a culture, like what I notice, at least in my, what I've observed and what I experienced, is just burnout in way too many facets. And so it's Unjuggle the Burnout Struggle, 12-week transformative journey. And what happened was, when I started to really look back at, okay, how have I gotten here? I realized that there was a framework that I've used every single time I needed to make big changes, either in business or personally. And it was always the same. And so I named it the 6 Ds to Deliverance. And it's really where you walk yourself through this process. And it's not, I want to help as many people as I can, but you first have to discover like what the root cause of all this stuff is, make a decision to do something different. Then you do the deep dive work. Who do you really have to become to change things around? But then also let's get into the details, like what's realistically possible, because just because you want to feel like $1 million doesn't mean that that's possible this second. So what are the details? And then we draft up a plan, and then you do your plan. Six C's to deliverance. I've used it 100 different times in my life. And so that's exactly what the program walks people through. And I'm so excited to just see the way that it's going to transform other people's lives. I can't freaking wait. So
That's
good.
awesome. And I love that you have that framework to like, it's a step-by-step thing, right? You do this first, then you do that, then you do that. And it's also about being realistic, because a lot of people, same thing with my coaching, with the financial strategy coaching, people come in and they're like, I want to quit my job next week. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a good goal, but let's look at the numbers, right? Let's figure out, is it reasonable for us to get there within a week or even a year, right? And then we work backwards to try to get that as close as we can. So yeah, I like that you have all of those steps to just walk people through, and it becomes very, very clear and not overwhelming. And speaking about the burnout, it's so real. It's so real. Literally yesterday, Lena from our group chat, I'm scheduling a meeting with her because I want to talk to her about her retreat that she's doing. And so I was supposed to send her dates that I could have a Zoom meeting like 3 days ago, and I didn't. And so she texted me to follow up, and I was like, girl, I feel like I'm about to be burned out. Like I'm on the cusp of it. And she was like, why? What can I do? How can I help? And she's like, why do you feel burned? And I was like, 2 dogs, mom, full-time job, hustle, side hustle,
#life,
eating, trying to be healthy, trying to have friends, trying to whatever, you know what I mean? Like
all of it.
There's nothing you can do to help. It just is what it is, right? But like burnout is so real, and it's not only from the work.
Exactly.
And if you're doing work that feeds you, fulfills you, then that helps to kind of reduce the burnout.
It does help reduce it, but I'm really glad that you said reduce and not eliminate, because I know sometimes like when we're pouring ourselves even into our work that we're passionate about, there's still like burnout elements that we just have to be mindful of. Okay, you did not answer the question I had for you, just for the record.
What question?
You know, your difference with the give up and the quit. So you just said that like you had to quit ideas. But even before that, it was like I wanted to know your additional experience with like navigating giving up something versus quitting.
I did get divorced. So is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was married for 5 years, had a daughter. And you know what? We had a pre-identity crisis. I had a pre-identity crisis. We need to come up with a better name for that. And then a pre-identity crisis. And then, no. Actually, no. I think we just had 2, but the timeline was a little different than yours. So I was unhappy in my relationship, and I was avoiding going to therapy because I didn't want the therapist to tell me what I possibly already knew, that, you know, I shouldn't be in that relationship. So I avoided going to the therapist for a long time. Then finally, I had my daughter and we were still having the same problem. So I decided I'm going to go to therapy because I feel like this is my work, right? That's when the pre-identity crisis started. So it's like that curiosity, that working on it, that looking for other solutions before you execute. So I went to therapy on my own for a year. Then or maybe this was simultaneous, I don't remember. Then we went to couples therapy for a year. And ultimately, we decided together that we weren't able to solve what was wrong with our relationship. And so I left and I moved out and I found a new apartment. I think the identity crisis happened somewhere in the middle of that, or even maybe then a little bit afterwards, because no, for sure. Yes. Look, I'm figuring this out as we're talking about it. The identity crisis did happen after. It's true, because I remember sitting in my new apartment trying to make decisions, and I could not make decisions because I had been like now conditioned over the last 7 years of consulting this other person before I made decisions. Meanwhile, before that, I was the most independent person. I would make my own decisions regardless if people around me approved of them or not. Like I was very clear with my own intuition, and being in that relationship for 7 years, I had lost touch with myself. And so now coming out of that, now being in this apartment by myself with a 2-year-old, having to reconnect with the self that could really take care of me.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
chills all day,
Mhm.
all day.
One last question.
Yep.
What does the word audacity mean to you?
Oh, go big or go home is the first thing that comes to mind. That's again, you didn't prep me for that. But yeah, like living your biggest, boldest, most tenacious, like just going for it. Just going for it. What does it mean to you?
It just means courage. And I shouldn't say it like that.
Mm,
It just means courage. But like literally, I think in my mind, it's just like a simple
courage.
explanation. It just means courage. Yeah. Which is exactly what you said, right? Just
Yeah,
going for it.
I love it.
Well, Brittney, thank you so much. I don't think I've had this many chills during a conversation ever.
Same. It was so good. You're amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for letting me share. Thank you so much to your community too. I so appreciate just you. Thank you.
Thank you. Same here. And I feel like we literally just talked about the tip of the iceberg. So we're going to have to schedule like 4 more of these so that we can have more of the story, because we talked about sort of the before, the pre-identity crisis, but I want to even hear more about after you left your job and like the process of you building your business. So that's another podcast for another day.
Deal. Let's do it.
Okay.
All right. Bye, my friend.
Okay. Well, have a great day.
You
Well,
too,
that's
bye.
a wrap on today's episode of the Audacious Founder Podcast, Being Bold in Business. If this sparked something in you, if it made you think bigger, dream louder, or take one bold step forward, then don't let it stop here. The real transformation, that happens off the feed. Head to the show notes and drop your name on our email list, because our community gets the unfiltered tools, strategies, and stories that I don't share anywhere else. Audacious moves only. I'll see you in your inbox.